Hello and welcome. Today, you'll hear a true story. It's the story of McDonald's, the most famous fast food restaurant in the world. But this is not just about burgers and fries. It's also a story about dreams, betrayal, and two forgotten brothers. Listening to real stories is a great way to learn English. You hear new words in context, you learn grammar naturally, and you enjoy the process. So sit back, relax, and just listen. Don't worry if you don't understand every word. You'll understand the meaning as we go. Let's begin. We all begin not with golden arches, but with something much simpler, a small restaurant in California and two hard-working brothers. In the 1940s, America was changing. Cars were everywhere, highways were growing, and families were looking for cheap, fast food while traveling. Richard and Maurice McDonald, known as Dick and Mac, saw that future. They were not rich, they were not famous, but they were smart, practical, and they believed in something new. They opened a drive-in restaurant in San Bernardino, California. At first, it was like many others. Car hops came to take your order, customers sat in their cars, and the menu was long. But the McDonald brothers noticed a problem. Service was slow. Orders were often wrong. Customers complained. So, in 1948, they made a bold move. They closed their restaurant for 3 months and reinvented everything. When they reopened, everything had changed. No more car hops. No more long menus. No more waiting forever. Instead, they created a system that worked like a factory. Burgers, fries, and milkshakes. That's it. Simple food, fast and cheap. Workers had one job each. One person flipped burgers, another wrapped them, another made fries. It was fast, very fast, and people loved it. The brothers didn't call it fast food yet, but that's what it was. Their system was new and exciting. It was clean, efficient, and popular. Other restaurant owners came to see how it worked. Some wanted to copy it. Some asked to open restaurants using the McDonald name. The brothers agreed, but only with strict rules. They wanted to keep control. Quality was important to them. So they franchised, but very slowly, and that's where Ray Kroc comes in. Ray Kroc was a traveling milkshake machine salesman. He was in his 50s. He had tried many jobs before, but nothing really worked. He was always searching for the next big thing. One day, he noticed something strange. A small restaurant in California had ordered 8 of his milkshake machines. 8? That meant they were making 40 milkshakes at once. He had to see it with his own eyes. When Ray arrived at the McDonald brothers restaurant, he was amazed. The line of people, the speed of service, the smell of hot fries. It was perfect. He thought, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. He didn't just see a restaurant, he saw a future empire. Ray asked the brothers about expanding. He wanted to open hundreds of McDonald's restaurants across the country. At first, the brothers were careful. They liked things the way they were. They didn't trust outsiders much. But Ray kept pushing. He promised to follow their rules. He promised to keep quality high. He promised to stay true to their vision. Finally, they agreed. In 1954, Ray Kroc became the national agent for McDonald's franchises. He opened his first location in Des Plaines, Illinois. He worked hard. He cleaned toilets. He trained workers. He followed every rule. For a while, it looked like a dream. Team the smart brothers and the hungry salesman. But dreams can change. As McDonald's grew, Ray wanted more power. He wanted to make decisions without asking the brothers. He wanted to cut corners. He wanted to use frozen fries instead of fresh ones. The brothers said no, they still cared about quality. They wanted to keep it small, manageable, real. Ray was frustrated. He called them too cautious. He felt held back. Ray started to believe that McDonald's should be his, not theirs. He built his own office. He hired his own people. He started making changes without telling Dick and Mac. He also created a separate company to buy the land for new restaurants and made the franchisees pay him rent. That gave him even more power, and then, in 1961, it happened. Ray offered To buy the business from the brothers, he offered $2.7 million, enough for them to retire comfortably. But here's where the story turns dark. The brothers agreed to sell, but they had one condition. They wanted to keep the original restaurant in San Bernardino, just that one place, their first location, their family name, a small piece of what they built. Ray agreed verbally, but he refused to put that promise in writing. After the deal was signed, Ray opened a new McDonald's across the street from their original one. He used the full power of his growing company. He underpriced them. He stole their customers. And, in a short time, the McDonald brothers' restaurant was gone. Worse than that, Ray refused to pay them the small percentage of future profits that he had promised, also verbally. A royalty of 0.5%. That one promise, if honored, would have made the brothers hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. But Ray didn't pay it. There was no contract, no proof, and so nothing. The McDonald brothers faded into history. Their names were taken off the company. Their story was nearly erased. Ray Kroc called himself the founder of McDonald's. He built the company into a giant, but he did it by pushing out the men who actually started it all. When Ray Kroc became the sole owner of McDonald's, everything changed. He was no longer holding back. Now it was his company, his rules, his dream. He didn't have to listen to anyone, especially not the two brothers who had built everything from the ground up. Kroc moved fast. He didn't care about the heart of the business anymore. He focused on speed, money, and expansion. He opened dozens of restaurants, then hundreds, then thousands. Everything was based on one idea: cheap food, the same quality everywhere, fast service, and clean spaces. Kroc wanted a McDonald's in New York to be exactly the same as one in Texas or Chicago, and he made it happen. He created a training system for workers. He built something called Hamburger University, where managers learned how to run everything the McDonald's way. If you can make one burger well, you can make 1 billion burgers well, he said. It sounded smart, but behind it was something cold. People became tools. Food became numbers. It was a machine, and Kroc was the man at the controls. Meanwhile, the McDonald brothers watched all this from the outside. They had no power left. They didn't even have the rights to their own name. Kroc had taken that too. They couldn't open another restaurant using McDonald's. They weren't getting a single cent from the billions the company was making. All they had was the money from the deal. It was a lot for the time, but not nearly what they truly deserved. The most painful part: Ray Kroc rewrote history. He started calling himself the founder of McDonald's. He gave interviews where he barely mentioned the brothers. In his autobiography, he told the story as if he alone had created everything. He acted like the San Bernardino restaurant was just a starting point, something he had improved, fixed, perfected. Dick and Mac became ghosts in their own story. Kroc even told people he had to fight the brothers to make McDonald's great, that they were too weak, too small-minded. He called them obstacles. He said they didn't understand business. But the truth is, they had already built something brilliant. What they didn't want was a soulless empire. They wanted to protect what they loved, and for that, they were pushed aside. After the sale, the original McDonald's restaurant in San Bernardino, the one the brothers had kept, was crushed. Kroc opened a new McDonald's just across the street and used his corporate power to run them out of business. The brothers couldn't compete. Their last restaurant closed. It was the final cut. Ray Kroc didn't stop. He became rich. He became famous. He was praised as a genius, a businessman, a visionary. People saw the golden arches and thought of him, not of Dick and Mac. The world forgot the two brothers who had started it all, and yet Ray still wasn't satisfied. He wanted more than money. He wanted the story to belong to him completely. In one interview, he was asked about the brothers. He said, "I don't believe in being loyal to anyone who's not loyal to me." That was his excuse. That was how he saw it, as if loyalty meant letting him take everything. Years passed. McDonald's grew into a global force. It became more than a restaurant. It became a symbol of America, of capitalism, of fast food. Kids begged for Happy Meals. Families lined up for Big Macs. The company served millions every day. And the brothers, almost nobody remembered them. They lived quiet lives. They didn't give many interviews. They didn't sue. They didn't fight back. They accepted what had happened. But they carried the sadness with them. One of them, Mac, once said, "I just wish we'd never met Ray Kroc." That one sentence holds so much pain. They weren't greedy men. They didn't dream of being billionaires. But they did dream of being remembered. They built something new, something important. And then they were erased. It's hard to say if Ray Kroc was evil. He believed in what he was doing. He believed in success, in systems, in winning. He worked hard. He pushed boundaries. He created an empire. But in doing so, he broke the very spirit of the company he claimed to love. He built his success on someone else's foundation and then tried to pretend they were never there. The story of McDonald's is not just a story of business. It's a story of ambition, betrayal, and the quiet heartbreak of two brothers who simply wanted to serve a good burger. As McDonald's exploded across the world, the man who called himself its founder stood proud. Ray Kroc was everywhere. On magazine covers, in newspapers, at business conferences. People praised him for his drive, his vision, his power. He became a symbol of the American dream. Work hard, push through, win at any cost. But that dream, in this case, came at a cost, and not just to the McDonald brothers. In the 1970s and 80s, McDonald's became a cultural force. It was more than just a place to eat. It became part of childhood memories, family, trips, and weekend treats. For many people, McDonald's was happiness. It was comfort. It was cheap, fast, and always the same. That sameness was part of the magic and also part of the problem. Kroc's obsession with control shaped the company forever. Nothing could be different. The fries had to taste exactly the same in Tokyo, London, and Chicago. The burgers had to be the same size, same color, same everything. Creativity was not welcome. Local ideas were not welcome. The goal was domination. To make that happen, McDonald's started using frozen ingredients, not fresh. Ray had fought with the McDonald brothers about this years before. They wanted fresh-cut fries, cooked in small batches. Ray wanted efficiency, and he won. Taste didn't matter as much as speed and cost. The company grew cold, mechanical, unstoppable. Workers were trained like machines. Smile, be fast, follow the steps. Managers were told how many seconds it should take to cook a burger, clean a table, serve a drink. Everything was timed. Everything was planned. There was no room for people to be human. Franchise owners were trapped too. Many thought they were becoming entrepreneurs. They believed they'd be their own bosses. But the truth was different. The rules were strict. McDonald's controlled everything: the menu, the prices, the design, the suppliers. If a franchisee didn't follow orders, they could lose everything. And because Kroc owned the land under the restaurants, he had even more power. He was landlord and boss at the same time. Still, McDonald's kept growing. It entered Europe, Asia, South America. It built stores in airports, malls, hospitals, even schools. It advertised to children. Bright colors, toys, cartoons. The Happy Meal was born. Ronald McDonald, the clown mascot, became more famous than many world leaders. McDonald's was now selling more than food. It was selling a lifestyle and controlling minds. Ray Kroc loved it. He called McDonald's the most perfect business machine in the world, and maybe it was. But machines don't have hearts. While Kroc was giving speeches and shaking hands with presidents, the McDonald brothers were almost forgotten. They never told their story in books. They didn't hire lawyers or publicists. They lived in silence. They saw their idea, their invention turned into something massive, something unrecognizable, and they saw their names disappear from it all. Years later, a reporter tracked them down. He asked Dick McDonald if he ever visited a McDonald's restaurant. Dick said yes, he went once a week, ordered a burger and fries. He said he still liked the taste. That answer says so much. There was no bitterness in his voice, but there was something behind his eyes, something quiet, heavy, unspoken. He knew what had been taken, and he knew he would never get it back. MacDonald died of heart failure in 1971. He was only 69 years old. Some people believe the stress from the deal with Kroc and the feeling of being erased contributed to his decline. Dick lived longer until 1998, but he too stayed mostly out of the spotlight. He never tried to rewrite the story. He never demanded attention. Ray Kroc died in 1984. He was 81 years old. At the time of his death, McDonald's had over 7,500 restaurants in 31 countries. The company was worth billions. Kroc was celebrated. Statues were built. A stadium was named after him. The official McDonald's story still called him the founder, but slowly the truth began to return. In the years after his death, journalists, filmmakers, and writers began digging into the real story. People wanted to know, who were the McDonald brothers? What really happened? And what they found shocked many. The 2016 film The Founder, starring Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc, told the story with all its sharp edges. It showed the brilliance of Kroc, but also his coldness, his hunger, his betrayal. The movie didn't lie. It didn't soften the facts. And for the first time, millions of people learned the names Dick and Mac McDonald. The film ended with a simple scene: Ray Kroc, older, standing in front of a mirror. He stares at his reflection. He whispers, "Founder," but the word feels empty, because he wasn't. Not really. Today, McDonald's is everywhere. Over 100 countries, tens of thousands of locations. It serves over 60 million people every day. The golden arches are one of the most recognized symbols on the planet, like the cross, the $sign, or the flag of a country. But behind those shiny yellow arches is a shadow, because McDonald's didn't begin in a boardroom. It began in a small kitchen in San Bernardino. It began with two brothers, not rich, not famous, just hard-working men with a simple idea: good food, fast and cheap, not fake, not frozen, not global, just local, honest, clean and fair. Ray Kroc took that idea and built an empire. And to do it, he erased the very people who made it possible. The world finally began to hear their story. But it took decades. When the movie The Founder came out, many people were shocked. Some didn't believe it at first. Others felt angry. They had grown up thinking Ray Kroc was the hero, the man who made it all happen. But the truth was more complicated and darker. People began asking, how can someone take an idea, build on it, and then pretend they started it all? Is that ambition? Or is it theft? The McDonald brothers never got their justice. There was no big court victory, no public apology, no statue, no restaurant with their names on it. They simply faded, while Ray Kroc became a legend. And that, maybe, is the hardest part to accept. But there is something else to remember. Dick and Mac never wanted to be billionaires. They didn't chase fame. They didn't try to control people. They just wanted to run a good business, something they could be proud of. They cared about customers. They cared about quality. They cared about doing things right. And in the end, maybe that's what separates them from Ray Kroc. He built a machine. They built a dream. One was hungry for control. The others were content with enough. There's a story that says Mac McDonald would sometimes go into a McDonald's and smile. People didn't know who he was. They didn't recognize his face. But he'd sit there quietly and eat his food. Maybe he was remembering the little kitchen in San Bernardino. Maybe he was thinking about the day they figured out how to make burgers in 30 seconds. Maybe he was proud. Or maybe he was just tired. It's strange how history works. Sometimes the loudest voice wins. The person who writes the story tells it their way and keeps repeating it. That person becomes the founder, the hero, the one everyone remembers, even when it's not the full truth. But the truth always waits. And now we know more than we did before. We know that McDonald's was not just born in a single mind, but from the hard work of two brothers who took risks, made changes, and believed in something new. We know that Ray Kroc saw their idea and turned it into something bigger but not necessarily better. And we know that power, when mixed with ego, can erase even the most honest beginnings. McDonald's today is a machine, just as Kroc wanted. It's efficient, it's global, it's massive, it's full of marketing and rules and numbers. But some people still think about what it could have been if the brothers had stayed in charge, if quality mattered more than speed, if kindness mattered more than profit. It's easy to say business is business. That's what people often say when stories like this come up. But maybe business can also be fair. Maybe growth doesn't have to mean betrayal. Maybe success should include the people who made it possible. Dick and Mac McDonald didn't fight for attention, but we can remember them now, not just as the men behind a famous name, but as inventors, as creators, as pioneers, as people who had a vision for something simple and real in a world that was about to become fast, loud, and greedy. They were the true founders, not in a legal sense, not on paper, but in the kitchen, in the system, in the idea, and maybe that matters more. Ray Kroc once said, "Luck is a dividend of sweat. The more you sweat, the luckier you get." That may be true. He did work hard. He was clever. He was brave. But he also stepped over people to get where he wanted. And that kind of luck leaves a mark. So next time you walk into a McDonald's, just stop for a second. Look at the logo. Smell the fries. Feel the rhythm of the system, the speed, the smiles. And remember, it didn't start here. It started with two quiet men in a small town doing something new with honesty, with care, and with no idea how big it would become. This is the real story of McDonald's, and now you know it.